Hi everyone. If you are wondering, hey Alberto, you said that we look at attacks and threats so we consider moves to respond appropriately. You also said that we evaluate the position to determine possible moves or plan of action. Which one of those is right? Or which one should I do first? That's an interesting question because it can be overwhelming sometimes, honestly. If you thought that the skills we have mentioned so far are difficult to do during a game, you want to think again. Welcome, chess masters. The skills we have discussed so far carry some weight and level of difficulty when playing a game. However, have you thought about what to think or how you think? I'm unable to answer how we humans think, but particularly when playing a game, we will look at some guidelines that will or should help our thinking during a game. Let's talk about that. How should I proceed? Now that we know all these concepts, how do I follow on my own games? Look for attacks, starting with direct attacks to the king. Respond to any attacks that need to be responded to. Then carry on with your own attacks. Look for threats, starting with immediate or upcoming mate threats. Then other less urgent immediate or upcoming threats. Address or stop any threats that require immediate attention. Then carry on with your own threats. In short, stop or address opponent's attacks threats first, then continue with your own attacks and threats or plans. What did we say about evaluating a position? We said an area of attention is evaluating because it helps us determine possible moves or plans. Also because it helps us organize or direct our thinking, which helps avoid I don't know what to do moments. And we said ideally we look at the elements in order of importance, starting with the most important at the top, king position or vulnerability. Then next in importance, threats and attacks, and so on. Let me clarify something here. The idea of evaluating only these elements is being only a few should help you do or handle the evaluation during a game. As you gain experience and learn more and increase your chess knowledge, you should be able to include other elements in your evaluation. But if you already know about those other elements, do include those in your evaluation. If you remember from our What is More Important session, we also recognized the difficulty of controlling our brain when looking at aspects of a position. Sometimes our attention is directed to what appears to be significant in the position, when it may not necessarily be. The expectation is that we look at all elements we must look at. We want to get into the habit of looking at elements in order of importance. As you gain experience, you will start looking at elements that are relevant or significant in the position. Sometimes, even Grandmasters are unable to recognize what elements are significant in the position. So, what should I look at first? If you have paid attention, threats and attacks are part of the evaluation. These two elements affect or influence the evaluation of a position. You or your mind may start looking at this. Typically, these two elements alone give you a good sense of urgency in the position and what should be addressed or tackled first. So they somehow give you a good idea of the moves that should be considered. Sometimes these two elements may not be as significant as other less urgent elements. Typically, threats and attacks must be resolved before addressing other elements, Element importance or its significance in the position may provide a looking order. However, resolving threats or attacks, especially against our king, when they appear on the board, takes precedence over addressing strategical elements. You may become a strong player by making this a habit in your own games. Let's have a look at an example. This is kind of an extreme case, but typical at our level. You managed to get a passed pawn to the 7th rank, so it is 1 square away from promoting. Your opponent is threatening checkmate next move. It is your turn. What do? Promote the pawn or stop the mate threat? Based on what we have just discussed, think, pause the video, and write down your answer. Here is the position. It is black to move. What do? Promote the passed pawn or stop the mate threat? If you thought stopping the mate threat first is the answer, and you would be right, think again. If by promoting I deliver checkmate, then I promote my pawn immediately. If I promote with check and after that I can address or stop the mate threat, then I promote my pawn. If by promoting I stop the mate threat against my king, then I promote my pawn. If none of the above is possible, then I address or stop the mate threat first, then promote my pawn when the opportunity arises. Here is a position from a real game. It is black to move and wins. Pause the video, give it a look, and try to find the solution. Okay, let's have a look. It is black to move and wins. Even though we already gave away the two significant factors in the position, let us evaluate to find out what's going on, and let's do it in order of importance. How is the king position or vulnerability? I see white's king is safer than black's, since black's is exposed to checks at the moment, or even back rank mate possibilities, whereas white's is not exposed to checks. Let's look for threats and attacks. Black is attacking the f2 pawn. Black is threatening promoting on a1. White is not attacking anything at the moment. White is threatening rook g8 check mate, as well as rook a3, stopping the pawn from promoting. What is the material imbalance? Both sides have 3 pawns each. White has a rook for a bishop, which means white is up the exchange. Lead in development does not apply here. What about the presence of a passed pawn? Each side has 3 passed pawns. However, one of black's passed pawn can promote next move. How should black proceed? We said we address threats and attacks to the king before less urgent elements. That means stopping the mate threat first, before promoting the passed pawn, since promoting is not check, nor guards the mate threat after promoting. A great move that prevents mate is bishop c5, which happens to stop white's other threat as well. Bishop c5 creates an escape square for the king. If white decides to go ahead and check the black king escapes to a7. Now the situation is such that white has no additional checks. Black will promote its passed pawn next move, which will give black a significant material advantage if it promotes the pawn to queen. And because of that, will eventually win the game. So that is the solution to this position. I hope you found the great move bishop c5. As you could see, the process of evaluating itself is not that complex to follow. Of course, habit and organized thinking help us do it. What sometimes is difficult or complex is the position on the board itself, the relevancy of all its elements. This is where attention to detail, experience, creativity, and development of chess skills help us become stronger, if that makes sense. I hope running through this example gave you a solid idea of what to do when looking at a chess position or when playing your own games. Let us now move on to another example. This is a two position in a single example. We want to illustrate how only changing the position or vulnerability of the king, everything else being equal, significantly changes the evaluation. It is white to move. What do you think of this position? What is your assessment? Pause the video, give it a look, and write down your answer. Okay. Now place the black king on b8 instead of d8. What do you think of this position? What is your assessment? Pause the video, write down your answer. Okay, what was your assessment of the position with the king on d8? Let's do the assessment. In this position, the black king is very vulnerable and exposed to attacks by the white rooks on the 7th rank. Rooks on the 7th rank is an element we have not discussed in this channel. Whereas white's king is only exposed to a potential check by the black rook, rook c1 check, and the king has a escape square g2. White is attacking the black pawns on a7 and g7. Black is attacking the white pawn on f2. White can deliver checkmate in 2, starting with the attacking move rook e8 check. Rook takes rook, and now rook d7 checkmate. Material imbalance. White is up 2 pawns, presence of a passed pawn. White has got a passed pawn on e5. What was your assessment of the position with the king on b8? Let's do the assessment. In this position, black's king is exposed to an attack by the white rook. Particularly, it is exposed to a check on b7, check, but has the safe square to go to a8. White's king is only exposed to a potential check by the black rook, rook c1 check, but has the escape square on g2. There is no other problematic checks for either side. White is attacking the pawns on a7 and g7. Black is attacking the pawn on f2. Material imbalance. White is 2 pawns up, and it could be 3 pawns up if it captures the g7 pawn. Presence of a passed pawn. White has a passed pawn on e5, 3 squares away from promoting. In this position, instead of delivering checkmate in 2, white has significant advantage. due to the 2 extra pawns, but more importantly due to the passed pawn. Now, instead of looking at how to deliver checkmate, white will play to push its passed pawn to the promotion square. This means moves that help with that intention must be top priority. So, moves like rook b7, check, getting out of the way of the pawn, followed by pawn to e6, getting closer to the promotion square, should be considered. What can we learn from this example? The king position or its exposure or vulnerability is a very sensitive element that can affect the evaluation of the position significantly. In these example positions, the evaluation went from winning in 2 moves to a +6 for white. The position with the king on d8 was a mate in 2 puzzle. Congrats if you found this mate when doing your assessment. This means we should be alert and looking for mate even when we know it isn't a mate puzzle. Also, you should look at all possible obvious and non-obvious checking moves to verify for a potential checkmate. In addition to the evaluation changing significantly, notice the aspects that now become relevant after moving the king from d8 to b8, and how the importance shifts to these other elements in the position. Those elements that were not important before now become important or significant, and this consequently changes the kind of moves we should look at or consider in the position. In the position with the king on d8, the plan is, how can I deliver checkmate? Or is there a forced checkmate sequence? Whereas in the position with the king on b8, the question becomes, how can I promote the passed pawn? And the bishop on b5, controlling the promotion square, suddenly comes to the surface. Let us now move on to the session exercise to solve on your own. In this position, it is black to move. Following what we discussed in this session, evaluate the position and determine how should black proceed. Let me give you a hint. White just played bishop d2, c3. Write down your answer. Good luck. And to test the newly acquired knowledge, I want to leave you with a test position. In this position, it is white to move. White played rook c3. What is the threat? Write down your answer. Good luck. Before we close out, the what do you notice position on the thumbnail of this video. It is white to move and wins. This is an endgame study composed by chess composer Alexei Troitsky. Write down all things that you notice in this position. Good luck. What did we do in this session? We explained that thinking during a game is somewhat difficult to control and challenging to do in an organized, efficient manner. We suggested a way to go about thinking, mainly suggesting we direct our attention to evaluation, looking at elements in order of importance in an attempt to determine which ones are significant in the particular position, and then proceed by addressing opponents' threats or attacks before we do our own. A collateral benefit, so to speak, not really part of the organized thinking topic, is that evaluating should bring to mind moves or options to consider playing in the position. Then we walked through 2 examples following the suggestion. We also emphasized not only the importance of king safety in a position, but how significantly can an unsafe king change the evaluation of a position. Let me know in the comments if you think this can help you on your own games, or if you have any questions about this or anything that needs clarification. To close out, let me recommend a very helpful 18-minute video by Grandmaster Jesse Cry, where he discusses the 2 ways chess players think. The link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. Like the video, share it with chess friends and family, and subscribe to the channel. Start your healthier lifestyle now and get a 15% discount on your entire order online at glowandgo.herbalife.com. Good luck on your next games and never stop learning. Take care.